Three, two, one, action.
Welcome back. We are now ready to begin our Board of Education meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 13th. May I please have everyone rise to the pledge.
Stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with our agenda, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated? Motion, second. All in favor? At this time, we will move to the audience comments on non-agenda items. Carmen, do we have anybody?
We do not.
We are moving to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything that they would like to pull from the consent agenda? And we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion, second, all in favor? We do have one item that was not on the consent agenda, which is 5.1 donations. We have a donation for $924.26 for the Barbara Kazenstein Scholarship Fund. And this was donated by.
Sorry.
There's a total amount.
Sorry.
Oh, it's anonymous, okay, to pay for partial summer camp funding for students with significant handicapping conditions. Do we have a motion to approve the donation for $924.26? Second. All in favor? Moving us to audience comments on agenda items. Carmen, is there anybody?
There isn't anybody.
Right along. We are now ready for our superintendent's update.
Thank you, President Silverman. I will keep my comments brief. Some of them will be a repeat, as we want to make sure there are families and community members who have not been able to listen into some of our previous meetings. We want to make sure that there is redundancies on important topics such as returning back to school, the most wonderful time of the year. In partnership with our school principals, we will be preparing for our Oral Day on August 23rd. This is the day that we will release a majority of information. We have a number of mandatory sign-offs that families must complete before they can access that prize information, such as teacher assignment. So we anticipate that our K-8 teacher assignments will be available in the portal and schedules on August 22nd. Okay. Oh, excellent. That the Henrik Hudson students, the high school student schedule will be released on August 15th. And all transportation information will be available on August 25th. We're still developing those routes in what is a dynamic situation. Please wait until the portal day to access that information and try to attempt to access that information. And when the transportation information is available, please review that information closely, as our pickup location and times and routes sometimes have a tendency to change each year. Our first day of school is September 2nd. The most wonderful time of the year when we get to welcome back our students. That September 2nd will be a half day for our K-5 students and a full day of school for our 6th through 12 students. Please be on the lookout for communications from your building principal with more information as well. In anticipation of the return of students for academics, our athletic office would like me to remind everybody that high school fall sports are set to begin in the next few weeks. Our varsity and junior varsity football teams will begin with their first practices on Saturday, August 23rd. While all other high school sports, will begin on Monday, August 25th. The athletic department has sent several updates on how to register for the fall season via Parent Square. We do have a new way that you register, and that's through a platform called Final Forms. All families will need to create a new account within Final Forms first, and then register for the respective sport. Again, the athletic department wanted me to remind families that they have sent instructions on how to do this via Parent Square. So Parent Square is how we have communicated that we are using Final Forms to register. Also, all athletes will need a valid physical within the last year. The district urges families to connect with our school nurses should your child need physical. Physicals are normally good only for 1 year and are mandated to start the season. In my community update this Friday, I will place a link for the registration sign-up process within that as well. And parents and guardians can also contact the athletic office if they have any questions. We do have an update on our gamma detection system. This is the system that will be monitoring any particles that may be released during heavy demolition from the Indian Point, the former Indian Point nuclear power plant. So all of the equipment has been installed, and it is designed to detect radiological evidence and serve as a monitoring tool during the demolition activities at the site of former Indian Point nuclear power plant. This is a significant decision point that the district we've identified still exists. So we anticipate the equipment being up and running within the next few weeks. We'll receive training, and the purpose of that equipment is to actively monitor for any presence of gamma radiological particles, which could indicate a risk to the community. The decision point that still exists that I'm still seeking input on is, what do we do if we detect something? So that's been a question that I've asked a number of regulatory agencies, from the New York Public Service Commission to the Department of Environmental Conservation. I've all asked them to clarify who holds responsibility for responding to a potential detection event. None of them have that answer yet, so I will continue to press that. In the meantime, until we figure out who is responsible for monitoring and notifying of an event, so if you think about this practically, what happens if radiological particles are identified? What is the response? We obviously don't want to not identify that and notify our community and surrounding communities, but we also don't want a false response event, because you can think about the impact that may have. So until we have a clear answer, I will be responsible for monitoring the detection system and push for what we do in the response of that. This is not something that will be actively monitored by the community. That would not be appropriate. So we want to make sure that we have clear and concise oversight of that. So I will continue to press those regulatory agencies on how we do this. But good news, the team, the funding was made available. The team did a fantastic job to include our facilities, to include Benita and her staff from a technology standpoint. The equipment is in, the training will be held. We just need to figure out probably one of the most important things. Yes.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday will be is when the training itself. So on a similar note, an update on the Magna Metal site. The Hendrick Hudson School District has received recent sampling results from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency related to the ongoing investigation of the Magna Metal Superfund site near 510 Furnace Dock Road in Court Manor. In 2023 and 2024, samples were collected from areas of Green Mountain Middle School, Furnace Woods elementary properties. The EPA is continuing its analysis of these samples, including a full human health risk assessment. And while no immediate health advisories have been issued, the EPA has recommended a few precautionary measures to further reduce potential exposure in the future. So the district, to hear what the EPA has to say, the district will be meeting with the EPA's remedial project manager within the next, within the short future here, to review those findings, discuss next steps, and to ensure that the continued safety of our students and staff. And I will continue to provide further updates to the board and the community as that information becomes available. Wanted to also take this opportunity to remind our community that as part of the 2025-2026 New York State budget, funding has been provided to make school meals universally free for all students. In response, the Hendrick Hudson Central School District will be transitioning our Hendrick Hudson High School into the National School Lunch Program, accessing those free meals. The high school will join all of our K-8 buildings, which are currently participating in the National School Lunch Program. And we have recognized, and we do recognize that with change comes questions. The food service industry has evolved significantly in recent years to improve taste, variety of offerings while maintaining compliance with the National School Lunch Program. And we are confident that all students will continue to enjoy their meals under this new model. But because we know that there may be some questions, we've held a series of town halls. We will have another town hall tomorrow from 4:15 to 5 p.m. here in the cafeteria for community members if they have questions. about that transition, what it might look like, all the way from why are we doing it to what might the meals look like. So we will be here as well to answer questions on that. We will have a student-specific town hall for all high school students. They were notified and families were notified by a parent square yesterday. So thank you to Carmen for sending that out. That they will have a specific town hall for them on August 25th from 4 to 5 in the high school cafeteria. We also have a virtual option. They will be able to join us. We will take information gleaned there. And the next day, Ms. Claire Carey, Ms. Figueroa, Ms. Scollins, and our new high school principal, Ms. Martino Alves, and I will meet with representatives from the high school government to debrief with them, to engage them on their thoughts and their feedback, to make sure that they are understanding of what this change might entail, and that we will listen to any concerns that they may have. Additionally, to support this change, we will convene the district wellness committee to provide ongoing feedback and oversight of that food service program. We will establish a community-wide thought exchange to gather ongoing input to advise us on our oversight. And I will have a lunch at least once a month at the high school to experience the food itself, a specific focus to support ongoing dialogue about the lunch program and other student experiences. At the same time, by transitioning into this program, we must rebid the scope of our food service contract. So that bid was open, that bidding process was opened. Bids are due to the school district this Friday. We will review those bids. I anticipate making a recommendation to the Board of Education on choosing a food service provider at next week's board meeting. That's the special board meeting on the 19th. And I have been assured by our current food service director, Ms. Claire Carey, that with that timeline, we still will be able to put meals on the table for students for opening day. So that's just an update on food service. We had, in terms of questions that require follow-up, just for a structural approach, when we receive input and comment and any questions that come up at a board meeting, while we may not be able to respond to it at that board meeting, we will make a timely effort to get back to anybody who does have a question or a concern raised at a board meeting. We did at our last meeting have a few questions and concerns raised by members of the community with respect to transportation on Kennedy Catholic. Just so you know, all those questions were addressed by myself and Ms. Merlini at a meeting we held specifically with concerned parents on July 31st. So those questions were addressed there, unless the board has any questions that they want to follow up on that. And if there's no questions on that, that is my update. I will turn it over to Ms. Jill Figueroa, our assistant to the superintendent for financial continuity and controls.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So the business office has been doing its usual summer work. It's a critical time for our non-instructional staff as we prepare transportation, lunch program, et cetera, for the beginning of the new school year. We're also in the midst of our annual audit this week. Where all district and classroom funds are, extra classroom funds are reviewed and finalized for the 24-25 school year. So that we can begin filing all of our state aid reports, and the results of this audit will set the tone for the beginning of our new budgeting season. That's what we've been doing, and we're busy until forever.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. And then we begin budget season.
Yeah, I figured you. It's almost June.
It's almost June, yes. Thank you, Jill. I will now ask Ms. Benita Joy, our Executive Director for Technology and Innovation, for her update. To provide her update, excuse me.
So I will start with, you did steal my thunder about gamma detection.
Sorry, I just like using the word gamma detection. How often does the superintendent speak?
It sounds very futuristic.
So our network administrator has been working with the team in installing those and getting them connected to the network. The annual form, so I did say that last time too, I do want parents to know, I did send out an email as well through Parent Square. If they did not complete the annual form, they won't have access to the student schedules this Friday for high school when they're posted. So please complete the annual forms.
No,
High school is this Friday.
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
And then for the, yes, K-8, it would be for the 22nd. Students will be able to access their portal on August 29th. So please encourage if you have people in the community who hasn't. Our data team has been very busy getting those usernames and passwords out there, because we do get a lot of requests at this time. Because they either forgot or they never activated one, so we've been really active in getting those out on a daily basis, so please ask. If you have anybody that you know, get the word out. We had a wonderful summer curriculum session for STEAM. One of the goals that I have for this year is aligning the classroom instruction with the STEAM curriculum. So we had asked for curriculum time to work with the STEAM teachers. What I had asked them to do is at least to identify one lesson in each grade level, and we kind of did science as the curriculum because that's where the teachers needed most of the help. So the ladies who I worked with, Rachel, Lorraine, and Megan, Boyle, I feel like I can just say Megan, but Megan, both of them actually created a document that specified which science curriculum, what Science 21 unit that the teacher will cover, and what Science 21 units they don't have to cover, so the STEAM will take over that. So there's actually a column that says what they can eliminate to save time in the classroom. We also, we do have a STEAM curriculum guide for the whole year. We updated that and also included places where sometimes there's a cybersecurity or safety or cyberbullying, those type of things, even our guidance counselors push into the classroom to do. So we started to see some overlaps of that because they're doing that in STEAM, but also our guidance counselors would push into the elementary classrooms to do that. So this year, we're going to do those crosswalks to see where that overlaps to save a little bit of time. So we're also sharing the same information. So more to come on that work. The other thing that we worked on this week was the computer acceptable use agreement. This district, we never had staff sign off on that. So since we do have a new policy now, Fran from HR actually worked with me in creating a form that will go up the first day of when teachers arrive, so they can sign up on the new policy. We did have some edits to that, so the new policy will go out for them to sign out. And the team has been working tirelessly on setting up the classrooms and getting data work done, classroom rosters getting activated. So the 15th is really the day that we're going to start turning systems over. So they have been working on it. And the students, I just wanted to say, they will not be able to. So when school closed until August 15th, students had access to ClassLink or any program that we used in the district to do work starting the 15th. So we're going to shut that down. The new roster is going to start coming up. So they won't have access to ClassLink or any of those programs for the next 2 weeks if they are working on keyboarding with that tiers or IXL and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. So just for parents, we oftentimes need to shut our buildings down to refurbish them so that we can get them ready for school. I know oftentimes those software platforms provide full day summer learning, but they do require extensive maintenance themselves too. So I appreciate you taking them down and getting ready to go up, but just letting the parents know is appreciated. And also apologize for the date confusion, but it just shows how quickly the 15th is coming and the 22nd for the start of the school year. And then we're going to do the building use form.
Do you want to do that now?
Let's do that now.
Okay.
Unless I'm totally throwing off your approach.
I just need to watch the webinar.
So while Benita's bringing that up, one of the inquiries that this administration has received for a number of years is to digitize the building use form, which is where you can reserve building facilities, spaces for an organization. And so members of this administration, from facilities to technology to clerical colleagues, have been working tirelessly to meet that what appears to be a simple changeover, but in terms of making sure the access, the process, the understanding of that process is seamless. It's taken quite a bit of time and person power, and I'm very pleased with all the effort that's been put into place. And Anita is going to share how a community member can access that form online to reserve our facilities.
So, I was able to work with, it's a joint effort, business facilities department, Kathy, and Tracy in the facilities department was very helpful in setting this up. Cause I have no idea how this process works. I've learned a lot. So right now we do have the link to the facilities request under departments and operations and maintenance. I just sat here and posted under community, but I don't know if it's there yet. It will be under community and it is their facility use request. So when you click on facilities use request, there's a splash page that I have created with instructions on how, if you're a new organization, like if you're a nonprofit or profit organization, you have to register with your there's requirements you have to have certain, to prove that you are a nonprofit organization, you have to have insurance. So all those information needs to be uploaded. So creating a new account goes through that process of creating an account. Then it does go to Kathy or Tracy to approve to create an account for them. Once they approve that application, you'll get a login to start entering a facilities request. If you are a staff or once you're approved as an organization, you can just log into the system and put in a request for it. As a staff member in the district, it is single sign-on through Google, so you don't have any registration process. They just have the current schools. Oh my God, and schools.org. Wow, I don't know where that came
It's
from.
okay, it's the midsummer fog. It's a real thing that exists. Most people get a break during the summer, a technology director, facilities, office, they are working at 100% full speed, so.
Also came back from vacation, so half my brain is missing too, so I apologize for that.
I didn't hear a word.
So if you have a PennHillSchools.org account, you don't need an account, you can just do single sign-on. Also, there is a important note in red that says you must put this request in minimum 30 days in advance, so we can go through the approval process. Currently, the process is set up where goes to the building principal. We also have different approval paths. If it is a cafeteria that's getting requested, currently goes to Claire Carey for approval. If it is a facilities request for athletic fields, it goes to Tom Baker. So there's different ways that you can do that. Also, if you're requesting like technology for a facility, you can notify technology department from there. So if you check off saying, I need a projector and a screen, it will notify the technology department to set up that information. So currently it is working. You can see the facility calendar here. Once it is approved, those things will show up on the calendar. We don't display where something is happening only because it is sensitive information. If you are a staff member, you are able to see more than just what you see here. You can see where the event is taking place. After the board approves those facilities requests is when it shows up on the calendar.
So just before we open up to questions, just wanted to say, Benita, thank you for showing us where to access this. I will say that Benita's office does not oversee the building use form. They are responsible for taking processes that were discussed, putting it on the website and supporting with the onboarding of the tool. So the business office oversees the facilities use form and the process. So if you have any questions, you can call the facilities department at 914-257-5152. If you do call the technology office, you'll get a very nice warm, friendly voice, but they will not be the best and most efficient way to assist you. And speaking of that, after we discuss that here, could we drive to the new chain of command chart? And I'll speak if you could drive. But I'll open it up to questions for the issue.
My own question, well, we answered one, who do we go to if we need help? Two, is the paper version still available or are we only doing digital from here on out?
When does it start? It started.
It already started.
Yeah.
But can people still bring a paper thing or we're just doing digital?
I mean, if there is a paper form, somebody would have to still enter it into the system, so of course, we encourage people to do it, maybe the first time if they don't know how to use it, yeah.
Okay.
But yes, we're fully, not paperless
Yes,
at this point.
to make sure that it's streamlined, information is not get lost. You want one medium of practice.
And also it checks if like if you're putting a special case request.
Do you have a sign in yet?
You have to request one.
You know,
I
No,
thought
you
I
have
did my
it.
things here.
She has an address, so she doesn't have.
yeah, she has.
So of course, as we transition, our staff doing.
Yeah.
We again, change often has great benefits to it, but it sometimes also causes anxiety or confusion. We're here to assist us through that change. We think in the long term, once somebody does this first time, they'll be able to be pretty much self-sufficient.
Yeah, I think this is amazing. I think it's a great sign that the administration is listening, because in my first term, I think it was like every couple of months, there was people coming and complaining about this, so. Thank you for, yeah.
Benita will do a similar brief presentation to the PTA.
It's,
Ah,
yeah,
that's
PTA's have been asking for this, so thank you.
Yes.
On a similar note, using this as an opportunity to talk about some of the continued work that are, so first of all, thank you to our facilities, Benita, to our administrative staff and buildings who have worked through how this process might work, but also thank you to the community for the feedback on how we might be able to better serve them. We've also heard that people want to know, and it's part of our strategic plan, how decisions are made and who goes through those decisions. The second part of that, who makes the decisions and who should I speak to? If you have a concern, we want you to find the answer to that concern in the quickest manner possible. To that end, if you navigate to the Office of the Superintendent page on our website, which Benita is displaying here, we have put a chart that shows you who you should go to for what we felt were the most areas of concern that you might have, that a parent or a community member might have. If you go to this chart, it provides you who you should reach out to first to get what we think is the most efficient and expeditious answer to your question. And then if you are not satisfied with that answer, the next step and so on up through the chain to receive appropriate review of that. This is the first step of the two-part process. We've asked our departments to put together to the best of their ability, because something such as a decision can't be quantified all the time to what goes into that. The inputs aren't always known. But what we've asked our departments to do is to put together, what are some of the guiding parameters that you have when you or your department teams make a decision when it comes to transportation or class placement or scheduling. So we are building that out, and we will upload that to the website in the near future. So if you're ever wondering as to why is a decision made in that manner and who made that decision, we're hoping to address that through this process here. So I want to thank all of our administrative colleagues who put their time and effort into this. And also, this again is informed by the strategic plan. So thank you for the community for that input as well. And thank you, Benita, for showing us how to get there. Again, it's under the Office of the Superintendent, and the topic is on the left-hand side of the chart and the various stages of your questions addressed there. So I've spoken way too much. Benita, thank you for your update. I'll now turn over to our Acting Director of People Personnel Services, Mr. Christopher Moore, for his update. And fantastic outfit, by the way.
Chicken.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So, our ESY program for our sailor population and ABC students is coming to an end this Friday. So I just want to thank all the administrators, staff, teaching assistants, transportation, everybody who made this a very successful year for all of our students. It's been a wonderful summer. In addition, our work-based learning program coordinators have recently were able to secure additional work sites with DSW Shoes and Cortland Colonial. So our students will begin work at those job sites starting September 8th. We are in conjunction with Mrs. Scollins and Dr. Garcia. We're nearly complete with our hiring K-12 for all our vacant special ed positions. So I anticipate that we'll be fully staffed for the beginning of the school year. And as I mentioned in our last board meeting, we have entered into a partnership with Northwell Health through BOCES Coaster. They are opening up or have opened up a Mount Kisco site, which will provide. There you go. Which will provide a number of different services, including psychiatric and psychosocial assessments, same-day crisis intervention for students who are in crisis, some medication management and care management as well. We're going to be sending out a letter with information to the community very shortly, so probably end of this week, early next week, with information about that, and also scheduling several informational sessions for the community and staff in September. And I'll stop causing that problem.
I'll now ask Ms. Lauren Scollins to provide her update on curriculum instruction and assessment. Scollins.
Thank you. So I'll start off echoing what Mr. Marino said. We have been fast and furious hiring incredible staff to join our team this year. And once again, I want to thank the community for rising and sharing the students back in the building, whether it took a bribe or not. We've had students present at all of our demonstration lessons, so we get to see how our potential new hires interact with our students. And one of the favorite questions Dr. Garcia likes to ask is, what did you learn about our community? And it's always interesting to hear what they have to say, always wonderful things. So it's great they get to interact. Along with that, working with Mr. Marino this summer, really refining and centralizing our MTSS process. It's one of the policies that is up for discussion tonight. I'm excited to be formalizing that process and really bringing that to life this year, and looking forward to sharing more about that in September. I have meet and greet scheduled in the community over the next few weeks. Tomorrow, at the Blue Pig in Croton, and her family does own the Blue Pig, so I'm excited and thankful that they welcomed me into their patio area for tomorrow, so I look forward to meeting the community there. Our teachers have been turning in their summer curriculum work. Benita almost stole my thunder with the STEAM work. Along with the STEAM, working to integrate our curriculum, as the high school is working on our real world experiences and performance-based or assessments. At our elementary level, we're looking for interdisciplinary experiences. So when we're looking at our new reading program, where do we see the ties to our social studies, our math, and our science? So that students can see the relevance in their work. So I got some work from our first and second grade teachers today, which was exciting to see. We're also planning our superintendent's conference days with our convocation, and then our second day, our teachers are leading workshops in the morning to engage in professional learning, working with English language learners, taking notes and engaging classrooms, some social emotional CPR for staff members, some really exciting different opportunities for our staff to learn from one another. And then our last exciting thing that we'll be planning on the website, we have a new landing page for our centennial celebration as we plan for the 100 years of our school. Working with HHCEF this week, we've been finalizing our culminating event, which will be an event at Windrose on Hudson, May 30th. So this is more to come, but the website is under construction, but I'm excited to share over the next few weeks and months that we have exciting opportunities for the entire community to engage in our 100-year celebration.
So save the date. Thank you, Lauren, for your update. And thank you, Lauren, also for leading the next phase of that centennial planning task force. I led the first phase, and then we got the party planning, and I don't do very well in party planning or interior decorating. And Lauren and dedicated members, some of those members are at this table right now, have really spearheaded some great efforts to recognize this milestone. If you're like me, you probably noticed that was some pretty dense and exciting matter that was shared by our cabinet, and I appreciate our cabinet members, the work that they're doing this summer hopefully you recognize that a school district never stops, and it's all for welcoming our students back. So there's a lot of work going on, and if you are like I am, and you pulled up a strategic plan, you can think of all of those items that we talked about. Student engagement, clear and targeted communications, real world experiences, and shared decision making, whether it be from Mr. Moreno's update on our internship opportunities, Benita's sharing of the STEAM activities, or the posting of the building use form to bring the community in from a targeted communication standpoint, with Lauren's update on the student engagement. We all can see our strategic plan really guiding the work that our administration and our staff in general and all of our employees are doing. So thank you for supporting that plan, and thank you for supporting us in accomplishing that. And that, our cabinet update, superintendent update is ended.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That brings us to the 2025-2026 shared decision-making plan. I don't know if we're bringing that up or we're just going for.
So the shared decision-making plan, as written in the statutes by New York State and the policy that guides our plan locally, is up for review every 2 years. We've reviewed it the past 2 years. I think because it has been a brand new plan and practice, that we want to make sure that everybody has an understanding of it, that everybody has input. We recently met in June as the district shared decision-making committee to review the shared decision-making plan, and some minor adjustments were made and provided by the committee then. At that time, the discussion centered around a lot of how new members are selected. And we brought that back to our building-based teams, because our principals who run those building-based teams are present at the district shared committee decision-making committee meeting. So they were able to take that back and put in place in alignment with the plan how those teams are made, and they reached out at the building level. So that was primarily the only update, but there was a full review. And in a timely manner, a lot of the discussion shifted towards how the shared decision-making teams at the building may implement or review some of the current event topics that were coming up, such as the self-conveyance and things such as that. So it was nice to see the work of the plan and the guidance of the committee and how that plan is formed, but also how it impacts the actual leading and reading aspects of our buildings.
Thank you. Everybody had a chance to read through it, so does anybody have any questions or concerns? What's our motion to approve the shared decision making plan for
Motion to approve the 2025-2026 shared decision making plan.
all in favor? And then moving on, we are going to do a little conversation brief on the NISBA conference. So last week, August 1st and August 2nd, myself, Tamika, and Corey were able to attend the Leadership in Education event in Albany, New York. It was 2 days filled with lots of jam-packed breakout sessions and seminars where we got to dive into a lot of information. So I want to turn it over to do a conversation on some of the stuff. You guys want to?
I guess I can, I think one of the things I wanted to just talk about was just seeing all the districts and how they have the students that are on there. And I know this is like our first year that we have a student on, but a lot of the other districts that were there, they had 4 years under their belt, some 3 years under their belt. And they had like 7 members, right? So the way they do it is there would be one person as a part of the team, and then there would be a team leader who would be the one that would speak for all the other students. And that team leader would then leave, and then someone from that same group would then come in. So there's almost like a peer mentorship that was amazing about it, because they got to work directly with that person and see them through a whole year and everything they were doing, where they go to all the meetings. Or and most of them if they could. And one of the things they were doing was just having an administrator as the lead role for that student as the contact. Because the students on that board would basically have access to all the buildings. And a student rep for each building would collect all of the information and then kind of download it to that person.
And then that person would meet with the student, and then at each meeting, the student would bring up any concerns that they had, which I thought was a great idea, because our student right now only has a connection to the high school, right? But what about elementary and middle school? Right, it's supposed to be a student that represents the whole community as a whole, and I thought that was flawed. To just have them getting information from each other, so everybody felt that they were being heard as they went through that, which I thought was really neat. But they were very impressive. Very impressive, so talented, so dedicated to what they were doing. I mean, we left there feeling like, wow, these kids are amazing. And there was one that came back, she was off to college, but she just talked about the experience and how it kind of brought her out of her shell. As a student, wanting to do a lot of public speaking, she was very timid. And it almost forced her to like face that fear and have conversations and discussions and just get a lot more comfortable. So it was really great to see.
Yeah, to echo that, a lot of the schools we saw had, as you said, multiple students, so they would have their one student who was someone who got to sit at the table, sometimes attended retreats, just nothing that was closed door executive sessions. And the other students would actually attend the meetings and sit in the audience. And then this way, if that student was out, you know, you had a replacement for that student. They had I want to say similar to like student government, they had an advisor for that program, which I just thought was really cool. They talked a lot about the different ways of selecting the students, like the application process, interviews, going to meetings and getting to know one student in particular that I actually spoke with for a while after. She said, until you are part of the school board, you have no clue what the school board does. They didn't even know it existed, and she was just saying like now she knows how decisions are made. She's part of the conversation. She has a very close connection now to the high school principal and to the board president, where she just said it's almost like every conversation that would happen with the board is now happening with students in mind directly. So we just talked a lot about how it's empowering our students to really be part of these conversations and decisions that we're making at the table. If there's anything else you wanted to, oh, sorry, one more thing. They also had what I thought was really cool, a retreat specifically for the students to let them learn like onboarding. And they learned like acronyms that we might say at the table, the process, like how the meeting works. And they said they particularly do one like 4 to 5 hour day of training with the students, which a lot of good information. I want to bring back here, and we did discuss with that district in particular, we exchanged information, that maybe we could virtually connect our students who are interested with the students from this district. Schenectady, they're like they're right outside, not far outside of Albany, but if there could be exchange like information. Yeah, and well, yeah, but it was just like a really cool experience, and I thought maybe those students, because they were so passionate about it. And I feel like I was telling them this is something we wanted to do before it even became a mandate. Remember, we talked about it, and then we just kind of hit the ground running because it became a mandate. So now I feel like we want to go back and really streamline this process and make it something so amazing for our students.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think also my favorite event was the student panel, and if you saw these 3 impressive young women, the way they spoke so passionately and confidently in front of a huge group of people. It was a really nice example to be set for, and like you guys said, the process of choosing the student, we are in our first year, so I feel like we learned a lot about a good way to sort of develop that interest when the kids are starting high school and having mentorship and stuff like that. There were a bunch of other really helpful events. Probably the other one that sticks out in my mind was the fiscal one, which was a lot of tough people were asking a lot of tough questions. Districts that were doing, you know, huge capital bond projects and districts that were, you know, struggling, and it's interesting to be in New York, in Albany, and see and meet, that was my favorite part, was to meet individuals from all over the state. And you know, they would ask us, are you from downstate? And I'm like, I don't know, where are you from? It's all relative, because there were people like further down than us, but like, I'm not used to being called like downstate. But it was a really wonderful experience, and I'm glad to participate in it.
Yeah, two other ones that I had breakout sessions I attended, one was on called New York Inspires, that was the pathways, the portrait of a graduate, and when I was sitting there, I was thinking, we've already done a lot of this work. And I know, because like when we sit in, there's one of the rooms that we sit in for our meetings, and there's the wall thing on the wall, portrait of the graduate, so I was really thinking we're kind of ahead of the curve with a lot of the new stuff that they talked about, you know, the new regulations, all the new things that the state is coming out with. I got to learn about why the logo is the way it was, because it used to be different colors, but now it's all different shades of blue, because they all blend together. It's not supposed to be in isolation, and I thought that was like a really cool, like powerful piece, because they talked about all the different pathways you can take, but all of them are not kind of like in isolation. That like an effective communicator, for one, you might see that in the creative innovator, like it was definitely like your role. So they said they revamped their logo after looking at all of that. And then the last one that I attended for the breakout session was on the strategic plan. We know that that's something that we're going to be looking at, having to reevaluate and create a new strategic plan. And I thought that was just really interesting. And it was talking about knowing where your community as a whole is now, to where you want to be for the future. And I said to always keep that in the forefront of when you're making those decisions. Don't just think about what's happening right now, but where you want to be in the next couple of years while you have your plan. Just a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot.
It's 2 days of a lot of stuff, but it was.
I saw other districts, by the way, that had like full boards there, and I was a little jealous, and I just want to say I would hope, I know there's one in October, and unfortunately.
They all have to see the jacket.
Yeah, they all went on the same jacket. And
I
was like, come on, we have to get our swag game up. What is
I
going
know.
on here?
The next.
I'm not wearing the jacket.
They are thinking we all need to get matching clothes.
What is hot?
Um,
5 degrees outside.
yeah, it was actually
It was
so
so
cold,
cold.
but
You're freezing the whole day.
I just thought it was.
Thematic costume.
Yeah. I just thought it was really interesting, really empowering, a lot of information. And we took a lot of notes and shared with everyone, so it's just, I know there's another one in October, and I'm hoping some of us are able to attend that and bring back all that wealth of knowledge just to make us stronger and better than we are.
I was gonna
We're
say
already great, but
about October is in New York City, and then the following year it's in Buffalo, so yeah. Maybe some of us might wanna go to Buffalo, but it's much further.
One of my favorite cities.
yeah,
It's much further, so it
Yeah.
would be easier and more sufficient to go to the New York City one while it's here.
I guess we also, just in listening to how they dealt with the student number that came on board, I know we had talked about just trying to, whether it was gonna be someone that from the board that was gonna guide them. And I don't know how everybody feels about trying to transition to the path of having like someone in the administration kind of shuttle it up, similar to the other districts.
I think we should, so in thinking about this, reflecting on it, I think it's good for the student. First of all, I think we should, seeing what you're seeing, and Schenectady High School has 2,696 students, so a lot.
17 buildings.
Yeah, we're dealing with 700.
Yeah.
At just our high school alone, so I would like to see a student advisory council set up. In the same similar vein, probably can do that sooner than later, to like kind of make sure that we're getting the K-12 voice. And then it's also then more based on what the board's working on, so we can even bring things to the student. I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there, I think.
yeah, and then, and one of those, I don't know if it was them or one of the other things, there were 3 schools that presented. One of them also does their student visit January to January, so they would start potentially their junior year. And then go to the senior year of January, so that there's like and then the next one would start, but that person was already most likely part of that committee. So we can there's so many things that I think that we wanna,
I think we should have the purposeful. So like, I think it's good to have the student connected to an administrator. I don't think that hurts in any capacity at all. I think we obviously need a little bit more training. We have to do all this stuff refined. We probably need to rework the policy a little bit, right, to make sure it matches our vision. I think that there probably should be a point person on the school board and an administrator that the student can connect with and speak to. The school board member can be the connector of like what's on the agenda. You know,
that's one of the things, was this? Connecting meeting, or one of them that they meet on like the Monday before, and they go through the entire thing, so try to
It's just similar to doing.
so they do that with like one of those.
Yeah, the
members.
leadership.
but I think it makes sense to have the student should have some kind of admin, whether it's someone in our cabinet level or even the principal, right? To
Yeah.
connect them with, I don't know, so here's my feedback. I don't know if Chloe, who's our student member, and he's not here today, so we can't really ask her. How this was explained to her, like what her time, right, and what she can do, we may need to get her. Right,
Yeah.
so.
And I think
it's-
that's one of the things we want to do is once she's back, is for us to just kind of meet with her and understand what the roles and responsibilities were discussed or presented to her as to what she'd be able to do, and try to come up with some sort of guidelines as to how we can incorporate her, but also be mindful of her schedule, that she's in school, and she has activities, and we don't want to bog her down with everything to make her go to all the buildings either, because that's not what we're trying to do. I think that's why we're trying to just create parameters and figure out what everybody would be comfortable with, and we have to check with her too. So I think that's the next conversation, but we kind of wanted to have a conversation as a board as to how we felt and what the next process is.
Just to inform the board's discussion, I turn it over to Lauren. Lauren has an update on what to simplify, what Colby signed up for and agreed to. So I just wanted to remind the board to help inform the discussion.
Yeah, I think, just to share the process that we went through last year, based on the policy and what the policy said, using our student government as a guide for how best to advertise and how best to go about ensuring that everyone understood. So I personally went to all of the 11th grade social studies classes and met with all of the students to discuss this role. I encouraged them to look at some of our local school districts who also have student members on the board. I shared the link to a local district who so they could see what what that student has been doing over the last few years. And then there was an application process. So part of that application process included the eligibility requirements that are in the policy, but also asked them to write a short response, about 250 words, for being precise, that outlined all of those things. And one of which was, how are you going to gather input from your peers and represent the voices of the K-12 community? So I know for a fact, they also had to have a staff member or a community member write them a letter of recommendation for this. And they had to create a platform that was shared with the entire school community about what they stood for and why they felt they would be the best person for this role. I think that when we have this conversation, especially with Chloe, she had some great ideas, as did all of the student candidates, for how they would involve the whole school community. And I think, having that, last year as the voting principal, being able to help her in this role transition and understand, as well as, from my seat now, being able to help her. One of her ideas, I believe, was going to lunch at like FGL, and being able to help facilitate that, so that she can have those conversations with different groups of students. So, I think that that's something that was exciting for them, that they all knew they were getting into, because it wasn't just their friend group, it was beyond that. And each of the student candidates, we had 5 students who ran last year. They all also met one-on-one with me to ask questions and really understand what it was. So it was a nice process where everyone had a little bit of say in what they were really getting into, which I thought was good, but I'm excited to refine it in year 2.
So just before we turn back over to discussion, just as an example, for illustrative purposes on how a board focused on sound policy, clear policy helps the overall operations and the administration carry out, which is the policy was written clearly so that we could take the board's wish was and bring it to fruition, so thank you for that.
I just have a quick question about, Lauren, about the, so was there there were more than 5 that were interested, or it was basically in the end, like, did it go from a group that you guys vetted to the 5 that ran?
So 5 students filled out the application and had met all the criteria, so all 5 for running. I did have students who met with me and talked it through, and they didn't feel like it was gonna be a good fit for them. Just time commitment, sports, some involved in other things like student government, and felt that that was a priority for them, not this work. So, I think that as we continue to grow, we'll see different,
I was gonna ask you, so you're gonna still oversee the process from?
So the way the policy is written is the building administrator, but the application that we have was developed from the board policy.
Right.
So it's something that I have shared with Ms. Martina Alves, and it's something that we will refine, especially as we grow this year, if we need to revisit the policy and we adjust the policy this year, then we'll adjust the application process moving forward.
Right, because I was just thinking like time-wise, just like you say, it's almost June already.
One of the things, we have to vote same day as the trustee vote, so, that timeline.
Right, like the coordination of like moving into it, it needs to be starting to be thought out now, obviously. And the other thing I was gonna remind, I think that you spoke with afterwards, connected with the Schenectady principal, I think it was. And we had talked maybe about trying to get the students connected in some sort of round table. Because, I feel like as a new board member, the most helpful thing that I've, other than obviously like talking to you guys who had more experience than me, was talking to other board members that I would meet at like West 5 or NISPA stuff. And that I could call, I could be like, I don't understand this, how do you do this or whatever. So I feel like in this day and age, they're so video forward that like.
It's so funny, that would be a good, the way that when I was having the conversation was, I envisioned, I was like, pen pals, but like 2025, modern where it's like on Google Meet and things like that.
So Carmen just registered Chloe for
Yeah.
that one, and they are actually, BOCES is gonna be hosting it as a virtual platform, so that our students in the local area will be able to have that connection. So
Yeah.
she can attend virtually through BOCES or virtually from PennHUD. So she registered, and it is an excuse to absence from class, so.
Yeah, is there any way that we can connect Chloe directly with the students in our surrounding areas that are doing this, because they may know each other already?
Yeah, I believe that's part of this,
Yeah.
this training, is that.
All right.
the network.
Alexis has.
That's right, I forgot. Yeah,
It was just the student body vote for them, that happened, okay.
The high school.
Right.
So everyone we had stations set up here on the day of the budget vote. And then a station set up at the budget vote itself with a QR code, and they went in and voted. So it was fun, it worked out really well.
They campaign, like I know you said they had a platform.
Yeah, so they had the platform, we had posters, there
They
were
made themselves.
all made themselves, yeah, so the platform, they were pretty incredible, they were allowed one slide where they had to share all of their things. So it was pretty interesting to see where they focused and pictures of themselves, but yeah, there were posters around and everything.
The only thing I was gonna say is like, I didn't know anything about, I knew that it was happening, but I didn't have any interaction or knowledge of that, so it might be in the future nice to like know that that's going on, or be like, I would love to have seen any of that, or, even sat in on some sort of, they're speaking or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was high school focused, but I hear
Yeah.
you, I think
Yeah,
that
when
next
that was
year, I
happening.
think it would be nice to share it in this platform too.
Yeah, Alexis has.
yeah, I've lost everything, but no, it's okay. A few things, so I'm sorry if I bounce around. While we're on that topic, I think it should be something that's considered to be portrayed through the whole community. Because if you're gonna tell me that Chloe or John or Joe or Mary is going to represent younger students, maybe they should even be able to vote too. Maybe middle school students or elementary students should be able to learn about these different role models
Civic lesson.
and vote on it. A couple other things, I love that you got so much, energy and excitement, because we're also new, and I think it's awesome to see a district that models it so well. My guess is it's been in place for quite a few years there.
Great for that particular.
Right, yep. So just think like we have 3 years to get there, right?
Yeah, well,
Rome wasn't built
Yeah.
overnight, so I think it's really important not to get ahead of ourselves. Start basic, start thinking about like the very bare minimum things, like, you know, simple. Onboarding techniques, it's a lot to learn, as we all know. I definitely think that an admin is awesome for navigating the like educational landscape of our different buildings and our different students. However, I think the only way that you truly can learn the functions and the operations of a board is to be connected with the board members. And I know it's like a little bit different of a relationship, like I'm not just gonna be like, hey Chloe, like wanna chat like about this, that, like at 10 o'clock at night, like I would call Erica or you or whoever. So I think we definitely need to figure out how do we keep Chloe or anyone in the future connected to the work of the board, because working with Ms. Collins or Mr. Trombley is very different than working with me, right? It's like a whole different ballgame. I also think that can lead to like an ops versus board issue. So if she is in the weeds, talking with students about they don't like chicken nuggets, or they don't want homework, or whatever, it's all operational. And now she's learning that the role of a board member is to be operational. So I just wanna make sure that we keep the focus on how do we teach her to focus on those top items that we as a board focus on. So maybe like, I don't want it to turn into like a chase around the district where her educational purpose or her reasoning for connecting with elementary is because there's policy tied to it or budgeting tied to it. You know what I mean? Not like, let's have her get input from the students that doesn't have anything to do with the board, right? We love our teachers, like, you know, things like that. They're wonderful. It's great. I think the student advisory committee, that's perfect for it, but I think that's detracting and taking away from sort of the role at the table, if that makes any sense.
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say for that piece, like I was envisioning it almost like how we get the reports from. Like Jill, like from business or something, like almost like just like a report, not necessarily.
From
We don't want
students that.
From like just what's happening, like more of like a what's happening, almost like that we can highlight what's happening in our schools, just. Same way like Benita tells us all the tech stuff that they were working on this summer, then it could be like, oh, this show, like maybe then we hear about like the shows. And sports and everything coming from the student, I was like just, yeah, highlighting there, not necessarily
Absolutely.
like, let's go into the schools and ban chicken nuggets.
No.
All of that.
I just think it sounds to me, like, from my perspective, it sounds like all of them,
No, I
right?
know.
So like,
But and. Just say it, sure.
I was just gonna say, one of the things that they did really well was the student would work with board leadership, so they would go through every Monday prior to the meeting. They had a meeting with leadership and they would go through the entire agenda, like every single item that was in there. And it's at that meeting that they would go over any committee reports that she would want to, that student would want to discuss. So they already had an idea of what was going to be said, right? And she can ask any questions actually into there. And then they would also be able to give the questions, you know, and I think that's a way of how you filter out anything that you might not want said that shouldn't be said at a table, right? If there's a question and you kind of balance the act of making sure that she's engaged or the student is engaged, but also that they're providing the input and feedback that we're looking for from our students. And I thought that was the best idea because you were able at that pre-meeting and kind of filter out all the things, and if there was a question that was being asked that wasn't appropriate, you can address it there.
so are you as leadership gonna take on this
Oh,
responsibility?
we didn't say the word.
No, I'm
Yes,
asking.
no, that's what we're.
Yeah, we're having it, we're trying to figure out
We're trying to figure out the best way.
the best solution.
We're gonna use all the pieces that we learned, and like when you said before to like. Rome was built in a day, like the exact thing that I said to them, like, and I actually asked the question in like the seminar publicly. We're so new, what's the one or two things that you would want to, that you wish you knew right now, like when you were first, sorry. That you would work on, I know, like, I look at this and I'm just like, I was sitting there, you know, like John before, like, I love all of this. But the question I asked was, okay, like, I know we have years till we get to potentially the level that they're at. So my question was, like, what's the one thing you wish you knew that you had at the beginning? Like, what do you wanna, like, focus on? And it was a lot of just like making sure the student knows, like we said, like, students don't know what's happening at a board meeting. They don't even know who that we are as 7 individuals. They don't know that we exist and what we're doing here. So finding ways to connect with the students and knowing, so that they know what it is that we're doing at the table.
And one of the things that you talked about, the reason why you need to do leadership is because if there was an agenda item that Chloe wanted,
Yes.
the student wanted to add. But if there was an agenda item that she felt very strongly about that she wanted to add to the agenda, we'd be able to do it there as well. So that was kind of the reasoning and thinking for the way they worked through it.
We can feed it.
I know where, like,
We can feed it. We can feed it through any one of us, really,
yeah,
as an
Well,
agenda.
I was just thinking that now that the agenda comes out so much earlier, maybe it's best to meet with her the day it comes out.
Yeah.
To like, you know, go, I mean, I know we had, so that's quite a tricky.
Yeah, that's why they always did it the Monday prior to.
Right. Right, maybe that's fine, I don't know.
So it sounds as if there's a sense of the board that perhaps the board through the policy committee would like to review, I don't want to term it a regulation, but sort of, we have shared in the past, May of 2025 process on how students were elected. We've shared resources. Would you like the administration to put together something to bring to the policy committee to review related to perhaps regulation type activities on how this could play out?
I feel like we should wait, and see how this goes, as we are sort of discussing it first.
Okay.
And then maybe 2 months from now, let's do like 4 meetings, 5 meetings, and then have that. Cause I don't think we know what we're.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
I think some.
we don't know what we don't
We don't
know.
know, we have to do that,
Yeah.
meetings
I don't
first.
think that anything, I don't think it's urgent that the policies change, we're not.
No, the policy, we're following the policy right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm just saying some sort of structure in that regard, whether it's, should be put in place, so our student who just started starts to get the right education.
It sounds as if the low hanging fruit would be to meet with Chloe to review the agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
So would you like us to work on reaching out to Chloe, looking at her schedule, letting her feel out her schedule?
I will, because I was originally signed as her mentor, I reached out to her already to discuss this meeting. And then I had reached out to her and said we have a meeting next week. And I told her we would talk, so, I mean, I have a relationship with. I can do that as a board, I can go through that, the agenda.
I think we start with getting an item that can connect to the first. That should be, I guess the first conversation we need to have is just a conversation with Chloe about what her schedule looks like for the entire year. So that we can kind of figure out how much time she can actually commit to what we need.
Or maybe you ask her what she's gonna find the most.
Yes, we need to hear from Chloe, yeah, so I think that's the first conversation.
Instead of like telling her,
what they should to review the agenda.
or like who she needs to talk to and when she, like what, like how do we help you learn?
I'm just confused why we're shifting, Erica's capable of just running through the agenda with.
Oh, I don't,
If she doesn't wanna talk to Erica, we can talk about that, but.
I don't think anybody's saying that, I'm saying we need to have a conversation with Chloe. Like, these are all the things we learned in Albany and the things were being done, and we just want to.
But I think I think she knows that we're gonna go with the agenda with her.
okay.
No,
I don't know, again, the same way we had to ask what was discussed for her role of coming on board. I think that's why we need to just have a conversation with her one-on-one. And that's what we want to do once she's back.
Yeah, you guys can connect more about like what, in the write-up, what the next steps are that she's expecting. Start to figure out.
Figure out the timelines, they also did their meetings, executive sessions after, so that all of the things could be ran prior and then it's. So So they're not there all night at a long meeting.
So we are starting earlier than 7.
It starts at 7, but they do exec class, so everything, the meeting starts promptly on time, they go through everything and by 8:30 the students.
So they can get home and do their.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not even in policy by 8:30, but even if we start at 7, we're very early.
Yeah, but I think that's why we need to have a conversation with Chloe about what her structure looks like, and her time commitments look like for the year, so we can figure that out. But again, it's all conversation.
Yeah, I think we're generally all on the same page, just. Rome wasn't built in a day, I think that's the.
I would say,
Key
I
takeaway.
but what we're talking about then. I know, I do think that Chloe understands that we are, our meetings run late, like she's aware of it. But I think she signed up for that. I don't know, we can talk to her and make sure that.
We'll have a conversation with her.
So I have 2 takeaways, the conversation with Chloe and then exploring a student for a sustainable aspect of this. Is exploring a student advisory committee in general terms to keep as another avenue of gathering feedback that can be brought to this table. So, I've held student advisory committees before, or councils before, those are highly valuable, to make some movement on that.
Liz recommends that in their plan, that we have a student advisor.
We've never had.
Well, it's pertaining to this, so you're giving, oh, it's part of this setup.
They recommended it in conjunction. Cool.
So I'll reshare some of the resources we put into the NISBA shared and some of the process that we do. There's some context. Again, to continue discussions. Just to recap that topic on it's thank you for sharing the notes. I was unable to attend, but it's one characteristic of this board that I've come to find is the commitment to continued education. So that's always, it's great to go to those events. I oftentimes when I have a colleague who's frustrated and struggling in their role, I often say, go to a conference, and you tend to get re-energized by that. So it's clear that encouraged the attendance there. So thank you for bringing back and sharing that information and continuing to learn about the role of the board and how it can inform our district operations and student outcomes.
At this time, the board would like to walk on a grievance resolution. Whereas on June 17th, 2025, the Board of Education received a level 4 grievance from the HHCSD unit. And whereas the Board of Education has reviewed the positions of the parties and has deliberated thereon. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Hudson Central School District hereby denies the association's grievance consistent with its decision dated August 12th, 2025, which is approved herein, and directs the district clerk to issue said decision to the superintendent of schools and the president of the association. Anybody have the comments? And so then you would need to vote on approving the resolution. And I think we're gonna do it individual. Roll call.
Roll call. Yeah.
Should we start this then? Jennifer?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna abstain.
Yes.
I'm gonna abstain.
And just to know, can I say why? We're abstaining?
I don't think she needed to tell why she was abstaining.
Okay.
There's no need to.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It's not.
It's on the grievance process itself. Sure. So just for information of what a grievance is a dispute on contract language and if the contract was violated or not. So it's standard in most collective bargaining agreements that there is a grievance procedure. This is the way that management and labor employees agree to resolve disputes, and it's collectively bargained the process. And it's a recognition and a demonstration of how to appropriately settle disputes as they come up in terms of what existing contracts.
Thank you. And that leads us to our policy readings, which we have 8 first readings. The first one we have is the first reading for revision of policy 1900 parent and family engagement. The Board of Education believes that positive parent and family.
Waive the reading. Second.
All in favor? This is again a required policy.
Do you want me to read the policy and then that way you can make a motion? Sure. To approve them?
Sure. We could do that. That will work.
Privilege policy. So this is a required policy, under, regulations for the school district. It's not only good practice to codify how we, engage our families and community members and what that engagement looks like, but it is also required if we receive federal funds under the Title I, Act, the Every Student Succeeds Act, which authorizes us to access federal funding. So this is it's a requirement of Title I. And in general terms, it details how we will engage families, what that specific engagement will look like, and the topics of that engagement to foster an appropriate home school relationship.
And we did discuss with Ms. Collins and Ms. Waller before her departure, to make sure that we were actually adhering to these and going through all the meeting dates that we have on the calendar.
So there's both a building level approach and also a district level approach that needs to be addressed.
So. You go.
No, you go first.
So just, so parent and family engagement, and I mean, this is a required policy, this is, I don't think we changed any of the language to adjust it. Yeah, for, and this were recommended. You know, rereading it, I think it's great, and I like that we're updated and it's much more inclusive language for who the family member, who the guardian is. I wish there was a way for us to codify. And I know that this is Title I and it's at the, and I know that, but like, what does parent and family engagement, if we're doing this policy properly?
So in general terms, a policy is the floor, that is the minimum. So this establishes how we, primarily the ESSA requirement is to focus on how you inform parents about resources that are available to them to support their child in their educational journey. What topics that they might need to be aware of so they can ask informed questions in their educational journey. So that is the bare minimum requirement of this policy. But if you look at how we live out our actions and how we engage families, that's well above and beyond what this policy primarily lays out.
I'm cool with this policy. I just wish that there was a little bit more in terms of in-person, in-building engagement. And I know that sounds like way too specific and policies are a little bit more bare bones, but it talks a lot about resources and communication and methods of communication. But I personally would like to see a requirement for actually making people feel at home in our buildings and welcoming them in more. And to what extent, and it's sort of a bare minimum requirement. I think it's shifted a lot at Fenway over the years, and I wish it was in that policy a little bit more. But other than that, I'm good.
Point of privilege, what would that look like?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let's just say, if you're in grades K2, the building principal is gonna look to, and the staff's gonna look to bringing in, making sure that there are opportunities for parents to come in X number. If you're in 3-5, this number. If you don't have in Blue Mountain, there's no opportunity. What can we do to bring in?
Well, if you want parents
You want
engaged, but we're not inviting them, right? So I think that actually FaceTime and in-person opportunities for people to feel at home within our district walls is critical.
And I think also talking to the staff about how they would like to, what they would like to change. Like, for example, I'll give you a perfect real life example. Middle school. 6th grade, 7th, they do 6th grade week teacher night, one night, most 6th grade parents go, right? Because it's their first introduction to the school. 7th and 8th grade. Not as many go. And by 8th grade, most of the parents don't go at all because they're like, what am I gonna do here? The families are not engaged in what is the purpose. I would tell people all the time. And I was the PTA president, I'm like, how do you not go to your kids back to school and to meet their teachers and who they're gonna be sitting in front of all year long? But I don't know if there's ways for us to communicate that those are your opportunities, because you gain parent engagement there.
When you find the magic solution to that, please
But
let me know.
But I think it goes down to like communications and like what the, like expectations and just, you know, in the same similar vein to this, you know, this policy.
It has to start way back, right? It has to start in preschool and kindergarten and building a culture around engagement. And I just think this lacks physical in-person engagement.
And, yes, and what I'm trying to decipher to see how we can meet this input, which is key input, because we exist because of this, the parents and the students in this community. Right, so we want that engagement. The genesis of this policy was that if we are receiving federal funds, to access those funds, you have to make, it used to be primarily the families of those schools that received Title I funds were the only ones that this policy applied to. That has since changed. And so it is, on one hand, a compliance policy. I'm hearing the feedback is, how do we, from a non-compliance standpoint, engage families?
I didn't think this was a required policy.
This
It
is.
is.
Oh, it is.
Yes, this is required. So this will delineate, like this delineates items such as you must have site-based teams, as an example.
Okay,
Um,
so maybe this is part of our goal. Based on this being required. Just throwing it out.
But it ties around engagement, yeah.
We're gonna be bringing that back on the 27th.
Okay, the next reading is the first reading of revision policy 2210, board organizational meeting. The Board of Education recognizes its obligation to hold.
the reading, second.
Okay, so this one, it was, we kind of just made it very specific as to, before it just said when it would occur and what would happen. Now it gets very into the weeds as to what exactly we're approving. The different positions that we will be approving, personnel, and all of that just gets very specific. Instead of just being so general. So, and that again came from when we were looking at our recommendations from this, but just to be a little more explicit as to what it is that actually happens at that meeting.
Yeah, I honestly, I just want to say, I think this is really great as an outline for guidance and, you know, it helps up, nothing can be forgotten with the policy, you know, quite as detailed as that, so.
Yeah,
it's
it's
great.
No,
this is.
no, I mean, we have Harmony on who doesn't miss a beat.
Yes, this is one
day.
No, but it's.
Jill and I
even-
reviewed it together, because a lot of it.
Yeah,
has to do with
One day,
business
so we'll
office.
be here, now we won't miss what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, we also, I mean, I think that there's also rollover, like we had, there's certain things that are required to be up, right? So we have that all outlined.
That again, will come back on the 27th as well. So next one.
First reading revision policy 4750, promotion and retention of students. The Board of Education is in.
Motion to waive the reading, second.
All in favor? Okay, again, a lot of this is required, and we were talking, again, that gets more specific from there, and it just goes into. We talked a lot about making sure that parents were aware of times when the students would be potentially retained, like making sure that it's not, you find out in June, like, oh, your child is going to have to be retained, and repeat this, that it was going to be clearly laid out who, when they would be contacted, who would be contacting them, the interventions that would be in place, the plan to get the student to be promoted, because as we know, retention should be the last option, that we don't want to. There's so many studies around how it's not beneficial for a child to actually repeat a grade or be retained, or it's better to make sure we have those systems in place and interventions in place for success.
But there was, I mean, this hasn't been updated in 25 years, so this modernizes the language. But it also, one of the things we discussed in policy was at what point is whose responsibility and what point do you go to a parent when you're seeing this? So it's written in there, it's very general, it's a little bit loose, but the guidance is there, that parents shouldn't be finding out about this in June, right? So But we did discuss that, because there's ways you could change the wording, but I think the way that it reads right now is probably for the best, but it hasn't, again, this one hasn't been updated in 25 years, so. It's much more, it's modern and it's clean, and it really explains the process better for our community.
I will, Lauren, if you have anything to add, because Lauren did spend a significant amount of time making sure that this policy aligned with some of our other policies that exist, making sure that there's clear connection and cohesion between them.
I'll say two things. The policy that Erica is referencing, I think, was only applied to elementary students. And so this policy goes even further to talk about our whole system and students at every level. And then the other piece is it does discuss our MTSS process. And so how we, work with the CSD and in order to find and use data to ensure that our students are making progress. So that's why one of the other policies that we'll read tonight is the MTSS policy, because now it's all kind of fitting together as a puzzle piece.
And you notice that many of these policies we're reviewing tonight are student facing, that's why we've asked the county to stay.
Yes, thank you. All right, guys. The next policy, you're gonna bring that back for the second reading.
Yeah, on the 27th, that will come back again.
The next policy is policy 5500, student records. The Board of Education recognizes it's the legal responsibility.
Second.
All in favor?
This is again, a prior one, it was updated in 2020, but it just kind of, again, it's just like laws that were updated.
It's for the legal.
Yeah, there's been a lot of legal updates,
Because this is a 5500, so this is one of the ones that's part of our current, we're in the cycle of this right now, I think. And this is mostly legal updates. And our attorney did check this one too, right?
yes. Yeah, it's just, went through it, but now I'm bringing back to here, just like student records, what can and can't be shared and how it's shared.
And to whom.
And to whom, yeah, so it's a lot of very legal, things that we cannot share publicly, and things like that. So that one will come back again on 22/11. Which I think that's 48/21.
Full ceremonies and observances, 48/21.
Second.
This is a brand new policy. Like, you want to give just an update on why we're bringing this one? This is also connected to another policy, I think, right? Like,
It is connected.
yes,
Sure.
yes.
So school districts have two, there's often, we talk about a separation of church and state. However, school districts are, as a public school district, must also provide the opportunity for students to be able to express themselves on, and that comes in religious exposure. So while you cannot mandate certain participation, you have to sometimes provide that. This particular policy allows and codifies how we as a school system, as a school district do that. And also allow students to excuse themselves from ceremonies that they may not feel comfortable being in. So it's a policy that addresses, if you take a look at the references there, if you're always wondering why policies exist, that reference section is a great place to look at it. So you're talking about student-led prayer discussions at athletic events, observance of holidays, permission of religious music and art. So this helps the district administration and groups looking to celebrate diverse beliefs and belief systems at the same time of ensuring that you keep that separation and recognition that it is in a public school.
Thank you for clarifying, because I think that's important and it's hard, you don't get that from the official, it needs to be plain.
Policy is sometimes dry
Thank you.
and drier than me, so that takes a while.
That one again will come back on the 27th. And we have 7133.
Okay, this is policy 7133, admission of international students.
reading. Second.
Oh.
Okay, this is new. And it kind of just lays out if we were to have exchange students and what that looks like, or for our students to be able to go to other ones and how that happens.
Do we have? Never.
No, so this came about because in our registration process, we do ask if students are the type of visa for a certain, if you're an exchange student, but we didn't have a policy, should someone check that off. So should someone come here and say they are in an exchange program, we have now a policy that states that.
It was not brought up because Lauren and I wanted to know what the different types of visas were, but it's just an added benefit to that.
And I don't think this is required,
No,
but it is, I think it's gonna have, and it's based on evidence, so.
that will come back, and then our next one is 7212.
This is the first reading, policy 7212, multi-tiered system of support in accordance with regulation.
reading. Second.
All in favor? So this is new. Yeah, this is new, and I think this is related over to.
This is a revised.
Like, could
Says
be
new, first reading.
just,
Chris?
oh, I'm sorry.
That's Lauren, I think Lauren, you want to talk about that?
Sure, so just before Lauren weighs in, this, I was going to bring up in my superintendent's report, there was some public comments, we received feedback on this. After we posted the agenda, there was some questions that were raised, we will respond to those questions. The nature of the questions in general, talk about the carrying out of this policy. So please know that this policy is a broad approach to this. We will narrow, once the policy is adopted. You notice that most policies say the superintendent is responsible for carrying this policy out. This is one of those policies where we will be bringing back through the form of an MTSS plan, a codified way of how we carry this policy out. So I'll turn it over to Lauren for some background.
So this policy takes what was our AIS policy and what was our exceptional students policy and melds the two of them. So the purpose of MTSS, right, our multi-tiered systems of support, is that we are assessing students, finding out where they are, and ensuring that they are making progress. So whether that is students who are below or above. So this policy codifies how we support students in our different tiers and targeted interventions, as well as the kind of a framework for how we support students at all levels. Previously, it was two separate policies that was just around AIS, which is academic intervention support. And then we had an outdated policy on exception and gifted learning.
Gifted and talented.
And gifted and talented, thank you, Carmen. So this kind of blends both of it. The work that Chris and I have been doing this summer, happy jump in anytime, Chris. So the work that we've been doing this summer is to take this idea, what this policy is saying, and to put it into practice. So I anticipate us sharing, we presented it to our administrators at the administrative retreat. I'll be sharing it with our grade level leaders and our instructional leaders at our superintendent conference day. And it really codifies what we expect, the conversations we expect to have happen in our MTSS team, how we are going to use our universal benchmarking to ensure that we are using nationally normed data to identify students, as well as students who may need to go above and beyond and how we can support them. So this policy took both and brought it together. And to Mr. Trombley's point, the next step from here is going to be taking this language once approved and then really putting it into practice, which I anticipate us sharing more about in upcoming board meetings as we roll this out this year. We've set some standards for what we expect at each level, and as well as our involvement in the process.
Thank you. We do have already on our study schedule board. We do anticipate in the November timeframe reporting out on the MTSS and process. It is a goal of our team to also have students receiving services through the MTSS program in an expedited manner this fall.
Is that one quick question? It sounds great to me. I'm just wondering what the thought process was in combining them rather than keeping them as two separate policies. I mean, obviously, I feel like it needs to like sort of a more cohesive message, but does it give enough attention? And it does seem more detailed.
Yeah.
Does it give enough attention to both?
That's a great point. New York State has really moved to the model of MTSS, and it's actually MTSSI now, so it's that multi-tier system of support and intervention, so it's also a part of the SEL, it kind of encompasses everything. And academic intervention support is a part of MTSS, it's one of the tiers inside MTSS. So by just having that one AIS policy, we are missing out on all the other pieces. And this brings them all together, and that's like the umbrella of MTSS. AIS is a way of delivering support through the process.
It's like looking at the whole child, because when it's AIS, you're just looking at the academic piece, and you could be missing. Like, a student could potentially be not performing well, and could have nothing to do with academic.
Right, maybe it's their attendance, and that would be addressed if, you know, I might be a gifted learner, but I'm not performing well on tests because I'm not coming to school. And if I'm not coming to school, that's not gonna help, going to an AIS class isn't gonna help me, going to a reading class isn't gonna help me. So this policy identifies all the different pieces that we can look at in order to support student need.
So also, not as tangible level, but New York State schools are not required to have gifted and talented programs, or programs for gifted and talented students, I should say. But we are required to screen students for if they could have a disability, or if they could have, or possibly gifted. So this policy recognizes the fact I feel it's more inclusive, and Lauren and I talked about the fact that these policies not only were they outdated, but it doesn't necessarily meld with our approach of identifying students who have specific needs. And I think it reflects more of our educational philosophy.
And will you retire about the two policies?
That we would have to wait until this policy is done.
So I think that the policies is good. I don't think that it really focuses on that enrichment piece enough. I think enrichment's taking a back seat. I think that's a vibe of the community anyway, but I don't think it's enough in the actual writing of the policy. I also, the main thing that concerns me about this policy is that I don't think there's any piece about progress monitoring of like the fidelity of the implementation, right? So like teacher delivery, consistency, effectiveness of intervention, documentation, accountability. That's not in here at all. Maybe that's more of like a regulation type of thing for the process. But this feels super light to me for something that's super important. I would like to see a little bit more meat on it. In the overall sentiment of the policy, it talks about supporting all students. But I don't think that there's anything that connects the programs. So like, I know that it includes special education students, and it includes like children that might be struggling socially or emotionally, ELL, like all of that. I just don't think that the policy really mentions how it integrates. Just food for thought for policy committee.
The one part it does have, so the second part does have the piece for the enrichment and.
No, there's something about enrichment up here.
Yeah, it has a
And then
piece
there's-
that separates the two, because one part is if like approaching grade level versus enrichment, so it has them separated. So the first piece talks.
No, I'm not denying that it's in here. I'm just saying that I really wanna make sure that just as much as we need to support children who need extra help, we need to make sure that there's enough focus on enrichment for children that need that. But
Well, at least identifying, like, you have to make sure that it's clear on the process to identify.
That's gonna be.
it barely spells that out, but again.
If
I think-
I could, and my mic's not working, I'm gonna stop, it keeps bothering me. I think that the policy is more of an umbrella, that melts to. When you see the MTSS plan and the implementation of it at each of the buildings, including the implementation of the WID model at the elementary schools, you're going going to see how the policy comes into practice for not only our students who are struggling, who maybe need academic intervention services, but also our students who need enrichment, and how that's going to actually come to fruition this year.
So if you
It's
look
been
at,
missing a very long time here.
Yes.
so to Chris's point, I'm asked Greg to display our MTSS plan. And also, if you look at page 3, and we're more than willing to revisit language if we need to make it clearer, you look at page 2 out of 3 of the policy. About midway through, it talks about the superintendent and their designee will develop a plan that talks about progress monitoring, evidence-based interventions. Sorry, not page 3 on this one, but if you go to the details. This plan will detail, bring to life what the policy asks and mandates us to do. And that's definitely something we can take as feedback and ensure that it's robust and evidence-based and also carried out. That's most, you know, as we say, plans are worthless, but planning is essential. So we want to make sure it's a plan that we're actually implementing as well.
Can we add that to the reference, as a reference to this?
Of course.
And then I have another. I wrote down, but one of them was reference that, oh. May I make a request? And if the full board does not agree with this request, or you guys think it's not possible to do, then just tell me. Go scratch it. But can we see? Because we have this new policy, we have this MTSS plan in place, we're reviewing it in November. Is there any way to bring us like numbers of how many students are referred, like periodically? So we have an understanding of how this is working.
So I think that in hearing, I think we need to maybe before November, I know I'm slated in September to talk a little bit about the interreading and last year's experience with interreading, what we're doing this year. Maybe at that meeting, we also do an overview of how we're implementing MTSS this year and what data we're using and how we're using it. So that in November, we can have specific data about how many students have been referred after our first benchmarking. But that there is an overarching understanding of similar presentation to that we did with the administrators. And that we'll be doing with the staff, so that everyone has a real understanding of how this data is used, and maybe even walk through some examples. So that we can really see, especially as Mr. Marino just mentioned, we, updated some of the school schedule at the elementary level this year to streamline and to make sure that, we have students in the correct places, as well as a win model, so what I need at each grade level, so that students aren't being pulled out of reading instruction with the whole class in order to receive targeted intervention, so now they're falling even more behind. And with that model, we'll hopefully see students receiving intervention as well as extension and enrichment in that time.
Okay.
So maybe we can add that, not that I'm giving us more work to do. But if we add that into September, if we add that into the September HMH, the interreading review, I think it'll fit nicely, especially because one of the benchmarks we're using this year is the interreading benchmark, no longer the FMP. So I think it's a nice time to kind of review all of that.
Thank you. This one again will come back on August 27th. And then we have our last one for today, 9115.
This is the first reading of revision, policy 9115, staff use of personal electronic.
Okay, so this one, the favorite. This one was last updated in 2005, and we thought it was important since we do have a cell phone policy now for students. We wanted to make sure that we also then were looking at with adults. And we were laughing because, as you can see, one of the things we crossed out was the PDAs that they put up. So the cell phone use policy for staff is just when you have students facing in front of you.
Yeah, we do, like, we also discussed, we do understand that the staff needs their phones for the two-factor authentication. So we know that, so that's taken into consideration here. But this just modernizes the language and, stick with our, let's go through every policy and update it, mantra that we have here. But, I think it's also great just to reiterate this for everyone in the community, because I know that a lot of parents and students, they have concerns about not being able to use any of their personal internet connected devices. And it's a reminder to the staff, like, they have to be cognizant of it too, and I think for the most part they are, but it's just a general.
And then on the other side, you can see that it said that, you know, devices should be powered off or that call should be going in through the main office, and that just was so antiquated. Yeah, we took all of that out because it's not realistic to say, you know, same way we do everything else. Like I use the example of if a doctor was calling about your child, they're not gonna know to go through the main office and all that, and everything's what I mean, so,
They also have lives, right, or staff with lives, and they also have emergencies and they have things. It's good that this is written so that we have one for the students now, so it's good that it's all in place as well for the staff.
And yes, and it's updated with new wording.
yeah.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, no longer. Anymore. So that brings us to the end of the policies, again, all of those, we will not have, we won't bring these back for our special meeting this week, they will come back for our regular scheduled meeting on the 23rd. Do you have any?
Just a point of privilege, I forgot to mention in my update, I normally tell my children to go to bed, I did not do that this evening because it is my youngest son Michael's 6th birthday, and he said he was gonna stay up to March the first, the board meeting, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday. You're still up.
Are you one?
Thinks he's 22. He's 6.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Committee reports, anybody have any updates on committee reports?
Yeah, we just did
Yes, I was probably gonna.
Can we just did?
Yeah, we just did our policy.
can I make a quick, a request that comes up, you guys send out a lot of information and a lot of, communication through Parent Square. I just want to reiterate the importance, that all of our events go on the district calendar. That's like a Bible for our families, so even the student, like next week, we have the student, meeting with about lunch, which by the way is during, kids' practices, so they won't, not gonna come, but some of them, it should be on the district calendar, so we need to be, wait, where is it? The cafeteria thing for the students next week to talk about lunch is not on the calendar. We have to be really mindful of that because I think most people, like, this, I can look at a long language, like a lot of reading, people just look at that calendar.
Also, can I put a plug in that next Wednesday at 9 AM is a meet and greet for the middle school 6th grade.
Social.
Middle school social, yes, thank you.
Yes, during the, we will make sure that we are more cognizant of adding events to the calendar.
Yes, because they almost, I'm gonna be honest, they almost don't exist if they're not on the district calendar. I'm just. That's my.
Anything else? Okay, yeah, ask for a motion to close the meeting.